might lead to a rather high unemployment rate. But the other thing is also that it's quite difficult, and it's getting even more difficult for young people to actually get into the employment market and basically to find the first job when they have come out of university and successfully finalized a degree and an education program. So that is another thing that might lead to a higher unemployment rate and the risk that is faced by young people today. And that, on the other hand, might lead to a higher risk of poverty amongst young people in the area. So what might be an outcome of this is that, and it was already mentioned here by the panelists from GARDS, that young people are rather likely to move into bigger cities because this is where the jobs are, this is where the culture is, this is where they find friends, where they can peer up, where they can realize their own individual ideas and visions for their own lives. But then, of course, the rural areas are left without any young people that can bring in what is most important for us, and when I say for us, for Baltic 21, but also for the EcoRegion project, that we're losing out on the high potential on how to foster sustainable development in this region. And this is to bring young people, youth, from the Baltic Sea region into this process and let them express their ideas about how a future sustainable region can look like, and let them express and come in with their creative ideas on how to realize sustainability in the area. So basically, youth is an underdeveloped resource when it comes to sustainable development, not only here in the Baltic Sea region but across the world. But we are here opting for bringing in youth and let them participate into the creative processes that leads to a more sustainable lifestyles. They are the future consumers, they are future citizens of this region. So they have to get into this process of fostering sustainable development in the Baltic Sea region. And this will ensure for quality and sustainability of policy making. This will increase social capital, civic engagement and trust. And what is needed is basically that people and young people find different ways of getting engaged, not only in the formal structures that are already provided through youth elections, youth parliaments, their youth groups, but also through more action-oriented activities. So the recommendations that come up from the working group on youth and education and culture basically is we have to think about policies that are specifically dedicated to youth. So not mixing children and youth policies, but basically develop policies that are dedicated to youth, and then youth we have to define a working age group for these, and usually it's like 13 to 25, some might even go up to 30. We have to do more research on perceptions of democracy and sustainable development to understand the issues that are important for young people in this region today. We have to increase the intercultural dialogue among young people so that they understand their own position in their local community, in their region, but also in their country. And of course, when we have this macro-regional approach in the Baltic Sea region, but also on a more global scale, and of course to have the knowledge exchange to meet new people and to keep a communication process going. We have to set up a regional network of existing youth structures. Basically, there are a lot of regional authorities already out there, and regional councils that do have very strong youth groups, and these people need to get together and exchange knowledge and basically work together on youth issues. So it's not about reinventing the wheel, but it's actually using what's already out there here in the region, but also in the different countries. And last but not least, we have to, and I already mentioned this, we have to come up with action democracy tools, because many young people do not necessarily see a way into the formal structures, but they like rather more to get engaged, more active, specifically on the local region. And it's not only about attending a youth group event or setting up, like sitting in a meeting and discussing youth issues and basically go home and nothing's really getting out of this, but to be active at home and see real results and have a real impact in the region. So that were the recommendation from the youth group.
So this was the youth group. I also see culture and democracy. Do we have other Okay, so this is the mostly focused or really focused on youth as a resource. Very interesting way of looking at young people as a resource, and we want to keep them in the regions. I guess this is what I'm taking from basically the goal of it is, of the thinking is we want to keep the youth in the region and not them to move to the city, which is a worldwide thing happening in all the rural regions, or actually in the countries that they are moving to metropolitan areas. So we want to keep them in the regions, in the rural regions, and how do we do that? I guess Ms. Zanders from Norway will have some comments on those recommendations, on this thinking.
Yes, I think that youth is very important, but all youth have been part of an education system. So we have also to think about the education system to make argument for them to change, to be more a tool for this development. So in that case, we see in the findings here there is a big gap between the recommendations for education for sustainable development and what is really going on in most education systems. So therefore I think that you need to think of schools as a resource, not only the youth but the whole school system. And within the school system, when we are doing the education, you do learning by doing, and then you can give those children tasks to do which are important, like saving energy, indoor climate, and different things you can do. So the young children and the youth are used to do something that are important for creating sustainable development. So, and they have to get a feeling that they are part of a bigger system, and they have responsibilities also. But if we are going to develop that responsibility, they have to be in programs where they are active and what they do are taken seriously by the grown-ups and by the politicians. So I think we should pay some attention on also the formal school system.
Thank you for this, Ms. Santos. We have just one expert on this subject here. I guess this subject of youth is somehow a little bit a different way or a separate way of thinking than the previous two subjects. So I'm not sure that other experts have some comments on this, but if you do, then please. Yes?
Yes, maybe two comments. The one is again from the side of protected areas, looking at the young people. When we look at possibilities to keep connections between young people and rural areas, there's the scheme called the Junior Ranger program. It is again by the Europark Federation, but the Federation has a section in the Baltic, in the Nordic Baltic countries, which is called the Nordic Baltic section of Europark. And they also provide the system of Junior Ranger program, which is bringing young people even when they are school kids, but even also later on to work with or inside protected areas on a voluntary basis, of course, but maybe this might lead for one or the other into also professional engagement in that field. So that is one part. The other comment would be, I can understand very much that when we look at the demographic development in the Baltic Sea region, that we always focus on the young people, or we must keep the young people in the rural areas. But maybe we should also look more as a matter of fact that there are many elderly people and retired people that are also a resource for many things. For example, they have the knowledge about traditions, and this goes back to cultural values. And they also are possible volunteer workers for so many things. So it could be maybe also a task to develop more schemes for voluntary engagement of elderly people. bring them back into active involvement in any activities, especially also with relation to environmental activities. Not only look at the young people, don't forget the other ones, because they are a big share of the society, if we want or not.
Thank you, Mr. Ostermann. Yes, we have some comments from the audience. Yes, maybe we'll start with the lady on the right.
Do I have the floor?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the reflections about young people and participation as part of democracy and sustainable development in rural areas as well as in cities. I've been working for 30 years with these questions in Norway, and we have some ways of doing this in Norway with youth councils on regional and local levels, participating in the development of policies. But then you also have, as Astrid Sandros mentioned, young children growing up, and in this socialization process,
I think it is important to them to get the experience of being taken seriously as children as well. Then we developed method of participation of children and young people in the land use planning, in the ordinary planning systems in Norway, that is based on the Planning and Building Act in Norway, and also connected to the UN Convention on the Right of the Child. They have a very important knowledge that we don't have. They are the experts of how they use the land in their living surroundings, and to do the land use planning in a proper way, we need to know the knowledge of the children and young people. So I would like to invite you, all of you, to the children's tracks poster in the Gdyni area, to give a short introduction to children's tracks as a method of children being involved in the ordinary land use planning on local levels. I think I also would like to have a picture of you that I could use for the website back home. So I hope you enjoy and would like to share this with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this contribution. So we've heard from the recommendations from the EcoRegion project. Youth is not the same as children. You have to think about youth in a specific targeted way and develop strategies for them. Now we have another message coming from Norway. Treat children seriously. Children also as a person, as people. They are not separate kind of species, and being a child, I have actually been seeing this among the adults. You know, I wasn't a person, I wasn't a human being really, I was something between a puppy and a person. So treat children seriously. They have their own ways of looking at the world. There were more comments coming from the audience.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you. I'm EcoRegion, regional planner, regional analyst, and statistician maybe also, and regional issues. And I'm not a specialist in education, of course, and in working with people, with young people, but of course in my life I was involved ecological NGOs, organizations, and academic teaching. So I met a lot of issues with young people. And I would like to raise that, to this recommendation, something like you already raised, that we should not only to include issues of young people into the existing policies or new policy making, but involving young people in policy making, in planning, and so participation and involvement of young people in the process of sustainable development planning. It's the issue which I would like to raise and to maybe add to this to the list. And another comment is that we have a lot of problems with young people in Poland also, and after these Soviet times, the youth organizations and youth movement is rather weak, and I would be a bit afraid of over-organization of the whole process. I mean, I know that in Scandinavia and in Germany the movements of youth and maybe the very, very well organized structures, that is youth structures. I don't know what does it mean, young youth structures, but I'm a bit afraid of it because it is because of the manipulation of politicians who build some young structures within the party system, and it is not only it's not giving real chances for young people to express themselves honestly. I'm afraid of it.
That was, I guess, I will just add, the last bit was probably about the Polish reality, that this is the thinking. I will give a comment back on this statement, being also from Poland, and then we will move on to the next contribution from the audience. I'm very happy we have some voices here from the audience, at least on this latest subject, as we only had one expert on our board, so that's very good. What I would like to say about the youth organizations and the way it works in Scandinavia, it doesn't seem to work in Poland and other countries around here. So I think this is a very interesting question to dig in further while looking at the youth, looking at maybe even the way the society works. It seems to me that we have been having a different history of communism and the top-down approach. We have on one hand very weak, almost non-existing real third sector. We have confusion about what the role of it should be. We have voices coming, it's dangerous, it can be a way of manipulating people. Youth organizations, what is it? They are not really there. There are some things happening in maybe some universities, but it's not very active. We have a different way of thinking about things still from the days historically, where everybody looks at the system and says it's them, and we are here, so we are not part of it. So I think it's very much an issue to be considered when looking at the issues of youth. It's a little bit different in different countries historically when you look at the history of it. Another thing is that the managers or the decision makers, the policy makers in countries like Poland, like probably also other countries from the communistic region back then, are still thinking in a way that it's a little bit funny how to involve the citizens. It's not clear, it's a little bit difficult, it's dangerous, it might be just a hassle, a burden to do that. So those are those two tension points, one from the bottom, where people are not really so eager to get involved, and from top, where the politicians are thinking, it's difficult, let's do it somehow formally, we made some announcement in the press and tick it off. So that's not really an involvement process that you do in probably Norway or Sweden. So I think this is one set of thinking that I see here in Poland as far as youth and youth organizations and involvement of the society as such in decision making. But we have another comment from the audience. Yes, if you could pass on the microphone there.
Well, I have to say, I
Aha, sorry.
I'm again speaking on behalf of the rural periphery. And here has been said several times about our need to keep our young people, not to let them leave to the cities. And I can say that I will bring one more perspective in this, that we in our area, which is Estonian Islands, the archipelago, we want very much our young people to live and to go to the cities and to get good education and to find good jobs and to find life partners and then come back to the rural area when they are young families, when they are about 30 years old and they have small children. So that's the way to provide sustainability for the rural community. So young families is one more dimension to think about.
And in order to achieve that, it's one important thing is that the municipality and also the businesses and other employers at the rural region see their role and provide internships and summer jobs and this kind of things. And this is one way to integrate the youth, to provide possibilities to get engaged through practical work and employment. And another comment I would like to add, which probably did not come up yet, is to use the new media and the possibilities of internet and social media as a channel for youth. In our city, one proactive young and creative young politician was frustrated with the way that we as the city communicated about our city planning, and he actually founded a shadow website or Facebook pages for the city planning board called the Turku City Planning #2. And it was a fuss and fun, but well, just an example of active youth.
Thank you very much. It's Ms. Sanders.
Okay, thank you. You have not so active third sector, but you have a very strong school system in your country. So therefore I argue that you have to try to work with them to make these changes happen.
I agree with the contribution from Estland, was it? The point is that what do the young people want? They don't want to become rich. If you talk to them, they say they want to make a living. And that is what the all Balkan region is the same. They want to make a living. Living means they even want to live in a health environment, and that they can make a living with the tourism. The most people I talk to, they don't want to go to the big cities. They are not familiar with the big cities. But what we can offer is make a living in the rural area. I don't think that why we don't focus on the cities. I mean, why do you want to focus? If you say 5 days in the Baltic region, then it's Copenhagen, Stockholm, Helsinki. I'm very interested how the Polish side would react if they put it into Warsaw, because it's a centrally governed country. The majority of people live in rural areas, and it's worth living in rural areas. It's not a bad thing. What we can do much better is offer making a living in a rural area, that they don't force the young people to leave to big cities. If you want to have big cities, you should go to Asia. The mega cities is 10 million people. You have to like it. And even your contribution, we have different experience. We have different experience in Poland and East Germany, even Scandinavian countries. But I think that is the interesting thing with the Balkan region. We do have different experience, and if we talk to each other, we can take the most out of the different experience. It's the same in Germany. We are not always agree with what's called Western parts of Germany. We have our experience, and we have to respect it and find this common solution. And again, with the schools, what I said at the very beginning, act local. If we want to young people participate, we should go with the paper into the schools and discuss it with them, and not say we have a conference, we had a final conference, and we agreed on all this, and now all is fine.
Yes, that is true. We don't have many people who would say I'm a representative of a youth here, but I find it quite interesting how those three subjects actually merge together, and we have quite some comments from experts on natural resources and from experts on sustainable tourism, and from the audience commenting both on the one and the other subject. So I think it's maybe an example of how you integrate those areas, and I see quite some links in the comments we've been making between those areas. So maybe it is useful for us also to include youth in our thinking of tourism, on our thinking of managing natural resources. Maybe they can play a role. Maybe it's worth thinking about our children in a more serious way. I don't know if there's any more comments from the audience on this point. I think our hosts would like to probably announce some more organizational information. So I think this will be the final point of this session. I thank you very much for all your contributions. I'm happy, as I said, that we have managed to have a discussion on those three subjects, even though they seemed quite different areas from the beginning.
Yes, thank you very much for this very nice discussion. I am now just giving some very practical information for the next session after the lunch break. We are going through three marketplaces, A, B, C, and all of you have a name tag, a budget, and there is a color on the budget. So it's either red, green, or blue. So to make this very easy, it will be three people. One of them will be me, and we will be holding one of these sticks in our hands. And those of you that have a red color on the name tags, they come to me, and the others go to the other two. And we will guide you through the three areas. I would like you all to be there, to be sort of ready to start at 2 o'clock after the lunch break. Thank you very much.
Yep.